All right, folks, welcome to the C Files. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell and share and all that stuff that we need to do to promote the channel. I know I'm being shadow banned. I don't know how many people are watching. I don't know how many views I get on uh, my channel because I know people have watched my channel because they're personal friends of mine. And I've been in contact and you know, several of them will watch and I'll still get a zero on, nobody, no views. And yet I know there's been views. And so, come on, YouTube. Come on now. We're not dumb, okay? We're not stupid out here. You might think we are dumb, but we're not, okay? Uh, I need to talk about this horrific attack that occurred in Israel. The loss of life there was horrible, and what happened was horrible with civilians being targeted and attacked that way. But folks, we're about to be dragged into a conflict that is going to be horrendous. Let me explain. Thousands have been murdered in Africa exactly the same way that it occurred in Israel. Entire villages wiped out in various countries in Africa. Why? Because they were Christians, because they were the wrong tribe, because of ethnic cleansing, a number of things of that nature. Thousands murdered. And yet, not one eyebrow has been raised. Not one word of remorse. Not one mention of a military response to save the lives of these thousands who have been murdered through genocide. We know what happened over the last 3 years and the number of people who have been murdered worldwide. Pokemon. I can't say what it really is on YouTube because, Ukraine and China's threat against Taiwan could not start the war that was desired by the world bankers and the World Economic Forum. They've been frustrated with us. They've been angry at us. Why? Because we won't play their game. They couldn't get us to intervene in Ukraine. Now, we sent some money over there, which went into a corrupt hole. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't what they were looking for. These wars are arranged. Anyone who has woken up and figured it out and begins to understand psychological warfare, begins to understand how the New World Order operates, how the World Economic Forum operates, how the Bilderberg Group operates. We can go down the line, right? If you understand how they operate, you understand that they play both sides. And they do that because it's a cash cow. They couldn't get that cash cow out of Ukraine. They tried really hard, but they couldn't do it. They couldn't get that cash cow out of the threat between China and Taiwan. Tried really hard, but they couldn't do it. But with this Hamas attack on Israel, they might have struck gold. Because everyone is going bonkers over this. Now, am I denying that this attack was horrifically horrible? No, not at all. Bloodthirsty devils planned this and carried it out. I tweeted this. The horrific attack on Israel was too well executed to be just Palestinian. But what are they going to do? They're going to blame it all. They're going to point the finger at the Palestinians and blame everything on them. And there may be a lot of innocent Palestinians that are not involved in this at all. But what are they going to do? They're going to target them. And then they're going to target Iran. They're going to try to get us into a fight with Iran. They're really pushing for a kinetic World War III. They've had a psychological warfare of World War III since 2001, but now they're looking for kinetic, bullets flying war. And what happens when that happens? The world bankers, the military contractors, and the World Economic Forum folks, the Bilderberg Group, they all become super, super rich. It's a cash cow for them. They make a ton of money off of these wars. So it has New World Order intelligence agencies written all over it. If you remember, it was the CIA that formed Al-Qaeda to fight against the Russians. And then they turned around and folks, the NWO carried out 9/11 in 2001. And they blamed it on Al-Qaeda because they had to take them out. So the CIA started Al-Qaeda. It was a CIA operation all the way through. It was a New World Order. It was a World Banker operation all the way through. And then so we go in and we get into this long contracted war against Al-Qaeda. Now, was Al-Qaeda a bunch of little angels? No, they were horrific, horrible people. But we're no better. Our intelligence agencies and the world bankers, they're no better than Al-Qaeda because they're the ones sitting in their fat cat offices planning all of this stuff and then having the useful idiots carry out the attacks. If you haven't figured this out by now, you need to get with the program. Okay? The world, the way it operates today, is not as cut and dry and black and white and simple as people may think it is. Oh, Hamas attacked Israel and killed a bunch of civilians. Let's go get them. Let's go get those Iranians, those Palestinians, and Hamas. That's how we think. And why do we think that way? We think that way because of programming. It's because of the mind manipulation of video and television. And modern television is the cell phone, the iPad, the computer. That's our modern television. And it's the mind manipulation programming that gets us to think like that. And to think deeper and to look at all of the integral complexities of how these conflicts get started and what happens and how it all inflames. That's something that the people who plan these actions don't want us to do. And that's exactly why we need to do it. You see, they're frustrated with us. They're angry at us. They about had it with us because we won't get into another war. We just won't do what they want us to do. So they can make their millions and billions and trillions of dollars. War is big money for the fat cats. So they knew. Here's what they knew. They understood the Christian mindset in the West. The most prominent eschatological view in America is dispensational premillennialism. Now, what does that mean? Well, basically, it's the Left Behind series, written by Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins. Okay, basically, it's Hal Lindsey's Late Great Planet Earth and so forth. That these predictions that we're in the last days, and that Israel is, God's people, and nobody can touch Israel, and that what that nation over there, calling itself Israel today, is actually the real descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And this is what has been programmed into the minds of Christians in the West. I wholeheartedly disagree with their understanding of Romans when it comes to that, and their understanding of prophecy. They like to call it replacement theology. The problem with that is that they've got it reversed. When you're replacing the church with Israel, that's a false teaching of replacement theology. Okay? You are replacing the church, spiritual Israel, with the Gentiles grafted into the Jewish nation of Israel. You have a spiritual Israel called the church. And this eschatological theological mindset replaces the church with Israel, the physical Israel that's over there today. Do you understand that the folks in Israel cannot name the tribes that they belong to because they don't belong to them? They are not descendants. Vast majority of them are not descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's number one. Number two, the most prominent religious belief in Israel today is atheism. Now, there's a small remnant of Orthodox Jews and, more liberal sects of Judaism and so forth. There's a small number of those, and there's a small number of Christians in Israel, but the vast majority of Israelis are atheistic. And that's replacing the church? Really? Now, I'm not condoning this attack when I say that. I condemn it. Because I condemn anything that the New World Order does in its bloodthirsty, devilish lust for the love of money. And war is the biggest money maker it has. But we've got to stop being so simple-minded when it comes to this stuff. Anyway, out of my tweet, the intelligence agencies, they've been doing this for a long time. They've been arranging wars. They've been setting up, the replacement of governments. Was it Orange Revolution, they call it? I'm trying to remember what it's called, but where they stir up a revolution. Okay, we know that the intelligence agencies are behind BLM and Antifa and all of that. We know this is a orchestrated thing, and when you look at the protests that are popping up all over the place, all over the United States, up in Canada, flying the Palestinian flag and, celebrating this attack on Israel. Folks, most of that looks staged to me. I'm just wondering who paid these folks and how much did they pay them to do that? Usually it's Soros. He's usually behind that. But it could be other sources. The point is, they desperately want to get us into another war. And they knew by hitting Israel, because of the dispensational premillennial belief of Christians in the West, that would be the thing that would drive us into a war. Now we have the USS Gerald R. Ford and her task group. I think it was 4 DDGs and 1 CG, and of course the CVN heading toward Israel. That's a lot of firepower, folks. That's a lot of firepower. Now, the thing I'm going to be watching for is if the news can pick up on it, because the news doesn't seem to be sophisticated enough to understand the difference between a carrier group and an amphibious group. They don't. I was in the Navy. I understand the difference. If we have an amphibious group heading that way, like the USS, there's a new USS Tripoli and so forth, or Bella Wood, with her task group, now we know that they're going to be putting boots on the ground, because that means that the Marines are going to be going in. And Marines are war fighters, folks. You get U.S. Marines into that conflict, there's going to be some serious bloodshed, because they will shed some serious blood. Hamas will be regretting the day they attacked Israel if the U.S. Marines show up. I'm just telling you right now. But Israel has a very powerful and strong military, and I believe that Israel has the ability to shut this thing down. The thing that I think that we need to be watching for is other countries jumping in, like Iran would be number one. As soon as Israel starts hitting these guys, which they're starting to do now, will Iran jump into the conflict? And then will that drive us into the conflict? And here you go. You've got a lot of people dying, and you've got a big, huge mess on your hands. And guess who's sitting back in their chairs, in their fat cat offices, watching the dollars roll in? Because they get the military contracts. They're the ones making the loans to fund the war. And don't think they'll just be funding the United States. They'll be funding Iran. They'll be funding Hamas. They'll be funding Israel. They'll be funding all sides of the war. Why? Because they're not picking sides. What they're doing is they're seeing a business opportunity. They're seeing an opportunity to make a ton of money. You see, their accounts have been drained lately. Why? Because we, the people, decided to stand up and say, we're not playing this game anymore. And that messed them up. So, here we go, folks. Here we go. Another conflict created by the New World Order, just like Korea, just like Vietnam, just like World War I and World War II, just like every conflict, I would say every conflict basically since World War I, planned, started, and then funded by the fat cat bankers, world bankers involved in the Bilderberg Group, Bohemian Grove, the New World Order, the WEF. They will sit there and just watch the money roll in. And they could care less about the loss of life. They really, really want to start drawing all these nations in. And what a better place to do that than the Middle East? And then get all these nations fighting each other. They're trying to get a kinetic World War III going. And a tremendous loss of life. And they don't care. They're just making the money. They're controlling the media. They're putting out the propaganda. They're pushing the mind manipulation and mind control, which I'm still learning a lot about in this book, the Tavistock Institution, social engineering the masses. And there's other materials like that I've been reading. It's a psychological warfare that turns into a kinetic warfare. Now, I'm hoping none of that, I'm hoping it doesn't go that way, that none of that happens, that it explodes like that. I'm hoping that enough people have figured out their game that they won't play that game. But my concern is watching typical so-called conservative news media and conservatives on Twitter and Truth Social and other places. It seems to me that the mind manipulation is having its effect, because there are strong emotional responses to this, and that's the right brain. That's the lower brain. The reptilian brain is kicking in. And when the reptilian side of the brain kicks in, the higher side, the more logical reasoning side of the brain, starts to click off. And this is what they use to manipulate and control entire populations. And they'll start doing the rally cries. And they're doing the Palestinian protests to get people stirred up, so they'll start bringing out Israeli flags and counter protests. And this is how they play the game. They get one side pitted against the other side. They get the high emotion stirred up, and here we go. Let the fighting begin. And the people who are playing the game, people who are using us as little pawns on their chess piece, their chessboard, are just kind of kicking back like this, going, "Oh, wow, look at this. I love it. Let it run. We got it started. It seems to be running on its own now. We'll just sit back, make the war machines fund the war, and make a ton of money on the interest. And we'll just get bigger and fatter and richer as we go." And that's how the game is played. I will have more on this, but I want to encourage you guys, don't think simplistically. Dig deeper. Look at it more carefully. And look, when people start saying, "Oh, this is a sign of the end times," and this, that, and the other thing, dig deeper and look at it more carefully. Don't just emotionally react to that and get caught up in that wagon train, because you're going to end up with an eschatological headache if you do. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. God bless. Remember, Jesus Christ is Lord of Lords and King of Kings and the Savior of the world. Look to Him. See you next time on the C-Files.